Chapter 22, Goose Goslin. More than a quarter of a century has elapsed since Goose Goslin retired, but one question remains presently unanswered. That question does not deal with Leon Allen Goslin's playing career, for that is plainly stated in the record books for all to see. 18 years in the major leagues with a lifetime batting average of .316, higher than Fred Clark or Bill Dickey, over 2,700 hits, more than Lou Gehrig or Joe DiMaggio, 900 extra base hits, over 900 extra base hits, 12th on the all-time list ahead of Napoleon LaHoie and Charlie Gehringer, 500 doubles, more than Jimmy Foxx or Mel Ott, and over 170 triples, more than Harry Heilmann or Al Simmons. A slugging percentage of .500, better than that of Honus Wagner or Heine Manish. Over 1,600 RBIs, 10th on the all-time list ahead of Tris Speaker and Roger Hornsby. No, the unanswered question does not deal with Goose Goslin's playing career. It relates to the fact that 14 names are mentioned above in addition to Leon Allen Goslin, and in all 14 of them are in the Baseball Hall of Fame. That question is very simply, well, why not Goose? Heck, let's face it, I was just a big old country boy having the time of his life. It was all a lark to me, just a joyride. Never feared a thing, never got nervous, just a big country kid from South Jersey, too dumb to know better. In those days, I'd go out and fight a bull without a sword and never knew the difference. Why I never listened, or I never realized it was supposed to be big doings. It was just a game. That's all it was. They didn't have to pay me. I have paid them to let me play. Listen, the truth is, it was more than fun. It was heaven. Of course, finally, after about 20 years, I had figured I had it. 40 years old, it starts to get a little too much like work. The old bones stiffen up and get a little freckle, and then it's about time to stop. Anyway, you can't live out of a grip forever. Hotel, taxi, train. Taxi, hotel, train. Then all over again. Could just about fit into those Pullman inns in the first place. Poor schoolboy Rowe, 6'4", and how he ever slept in them, I'll never know. Myself, I was prone to trains to begin with, so I finally up and said, "Get this, old boy. It's time to go fishing." And it's pure and simple what I did, and had been doing ever since. I used to have a big billboard down there where at the fork in the road, Goose Goslin fishing boats and tackle for rent. But they bothered me so much about it, I took the darn thing down. Sent me letters every week telling me I had to pay a tax on it. Well, when the bill finally came in, it turned out to be 60 cents. Oh boy, $5. Okay, but 60 cents? How the devil do you make a check out for 60 cents? Made me so mad I took the billboard down and just put my name up there on a little stick. Did you see it? Hard to, because the weeds have grown higher than the stick by now. Who cares? No more billboards for me. 60 cents? Think of it. Everybody knows me here anyway. I was born and raised near Salem, 18 miles from here. I was always playing ball around the sandlots here when I was a kid. I'd ride 10 miles on my bike to play ball, play all day along, and get a spanking when I got back because I'd get home too late to milk the cows and without anything to eat all day. Then I got into semi-pro ball around here, and then one day this umpire saw me, Bill McGowan. It was later he became an American League umpire for about 20 years. "I can get you a professional job with Rochester, kid," he said. "Great," I said. "I'm ready to go." Well, it turned out he couldn't. Rochester had all the pitchers they needed that season. I was a pitcher then, see. So then he says, "Well, I can get you a job down in Columbia, South Carolina in the Sally League. How about that?" "Great," I said. "I'm ready to go." Didn't matter to me. I'd have played anywhere. That's where I went. Columbia, South Carolina. That was 1920. I was 20 years old. Turned out that professional ball was a little different from sandlot ball. Around here, I used to be quite a pitcher. That's what I thought anyway. Used to strike them out and one after the other, but down there, it seems like the harder I threw the ball, the harder they hit it. One of the first games I pitched to Columbia, our manager, Zen Beck, came over to me from third base where he's playing. "Listen, young man," he says, "I've been in baseball a long time, but the fact is that I'm not 31 yet. Won't be until the season ends. If you keep this up, I'll never make it. 'Cause the way they're hitting you, I'll get killed out of there for sure. Out here for sure." I guess he wasn't kidding, because a little later he made me into an outfielder. Next year I hit .390, and before the season was over, Clark Griffith, the owner of the Washington Senators, bought me. My, oh my, I thought, isn't this something me in the big leagues? I couldn't wait to get there. Baseball always came so easy to me. I was lucky being raised on a farm. I guess I always worked hard, hefty work, and it made me pretty strong. I could always swing the bat real quick, just natural, never had to train or practice a whole lot. Good eyes, quick reflexes, strong arms. Oh, did I ever love to get up there and hit? Most of all, I truly loved those fastballs. They were right down my alley. They'd come in and whack, right back out there they'd go. I never could wait for spring to come so I could get out there and swat those baseballs. Of course, I had my bad days too. April 28th, 1934, for example. How can I ever forget that day? I got up to bat 4 times, hit the ball good each time, and hit into 4 consecutive double plays. Think of that. I mowed those guys off the bases like shooting blackbirds off a bush. After that 4th time, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It's still a record. What makes me mad, though, it was tied by a boy named the name of Mike Krevich. He did the same thing about 5 years later, tied my record. I didn't like that one bit. I wanted to be an undisputed double play champ. One year I was hitting way out in front of everybody else in the league by 20 or 30 points all season. That was 1928. September, Heine Manush kept gaining on me. And by the last day of the season, he was only a fraction of a point behind me. We were playing the St. Louis Browns on that last day, and Heine played left field for the Browns. I was in left field for the Senators, so Heine and I were playing against each other with the batting title on the line. Well, do you know that battle went right down to my very last time at bat. Came my turn to bat on the 9th inning of last game of the season, and if I make an out, I lose the batting championship, and if I get a hit, I win it. His average is .378, mine's .378 in a fraction. If I get up and don't get a hit, I'll drop below him. I had that information before I went up to bat. One of the sports writers sent it down to me with a note that said, if you go to bat and make an out, Manush will win the batting title. Best thing to do is don't get up to a bat at all, and then you've got it made. Gee, I didn't know what to do. Bucky Harris left it up to me. He was the manager. What do you want to do, Goose? He asked me. It's up to you. I'll send in a pinch hitter if you want me to. Well, I said, I never won a batting title, and I sure would love to, just for once in my life. So I think I'll stay right here on the bench if it's okay with you. Of course. Everybody gathered around, waiting to be on what's going on. You better watch out, Joe Judge says, or they'll call you yellow. What are you talking about? Well, he says, there's Heine right out there in left field. What do you think he'll figure out if you win the title by sitting on the bench? So this starts a big argument in the dugout. Should I go up or shouldn't I? Finally, I got disgusted, the whole thing. All right, I said. Stop all the noise. I'm going up there. And doggone if that pitcher didn't get 2 quick strikes on me before I couldn't even get in the batter's box. I never took my bat off my shoulder, and already the count was 2 strikes and no balls. No balls. So I turned around and stepped out of the box and sort of had a discussion with myself. while I put some dirt on my hands. I wasn't too afraid of striking out, but a pop-up or a roller to the infield, and I was dead. Dead duck, or a gone goose, you might say. Well, I didn't know what to do, and if it came to me, get thrown out of the ball game, that way I wouldn't be charged with the time at bat, and it is in the big game in the bag. Umpire was a big-necked guy by the name of Bill Guthrie, so I turned on him. Why, those pitches weren't even close, I said. Listen, wise guy, he says, there's no such thing as close or not. Close. It's either this or that. Oh, did that ever get me mad? I acted like. I called him every name in the book. I stepped on his toes. I pushed him. I did everything. Okay, he said after about 5 minutes of this. Are you ready to bat now? You're not going to get thrown out of this ball game no matter what you do. So you might as well get up to the plate. If I wanted to throw you out, I'd throw you clear out or over to Oshkosh. But you're going in the bat, and you better be in there swinging too. No base on balls, you hear me? I heard him, and gee, I got a lucky hit. Saved me. I guess that was the biggest thrill I ever got. Even bigger than that single that won the 1935 World Series. Good Dr. Pepper. Anyway, another lucky hit. It was a great honor to win a batting title in those days. It wasn't an easy thing to do. I hit .344 in 1924 and didn't even come close. Babe Ruth won it with .378. In 1926, I hit .354, but that year, Manish Heine, he hit .378. The next year, Harry Heilman hit .398. The first year I came up with George Sisler, he hit .420. Geez, you had to be a wizard to come up anywhere close to the top in those days. A guy who hit .350 was considered just an average hitter. These days, he'd hit both leagues by 20 points every year. Funny thing, 2 years after that, I was traded to the St. Louis Browns for all people Heine Manouche. Heine went to Washington, and then I went to St. Louis. That wasn't a very happy day for me. First time I got traded, I'd been with the Senators for 10 years, and it came as a mighty unpleasant surprise. Happened while we were in St. Louis, too. We played in Chicago the day before and got into St. Louis about 8 o'clock in the morning. We went to the hotel and had breakfast, and then I had a few hours and nothing to do. So I thought I'd go over to the zoo. That rhymes. They have a nice zoo in St. Louis, not far from the hotel. They have bears there and monkeys. I gave them peanuts and things like that. So I spent a couple hours at the zoo, and when I got back to the hotel, there's Sam Rice, my roommate, sitting there in the lobby waiting for me. Hey, you're in the wrong hotel, he says as soon as he sees me. I didn't get it. I'll tell you, you're in the wrong hotel, he says again. What are you talking about? Well, he says, you'll find out. I smelled the mouse somewhere. Don't you know that they traded you to the St. Louis Browns? He says. No, I said. Did they really? Well, it broke my heart. It really did. That afternoon, I had to go to the other clubhouse, and I played that day against my old teammates, all my best friends. A couple years later, though, the Browns traded me back to Washington, and then Heine and I played together in the same outfield for one season. That was 1933. We won the pennant in Washington that year. The Senators have won only 3 pennants in 1924, 1925, and 1933. And I was there each time. Come to think of it, they never played a World Series game I didn't play every single inning of. I'll talk about excitement. That 1924 World Series beats them all. In the 7th game of the series, each of us had won 3 games. We were 2 runs behind the New York Giants, who was also in that World Series, going into the bottom of the 8th inning, and it looked like the end was awfully close. But in the last of the 8th, we got the bases loaded with 2 outs. Buck Harris hit a grounder down to Freddie Lindstrom that hit a pebble and bounced over his head and tied the score. Walter Johnson then went into pitch for us, with the score tied 3 with 2 more breaks gave us the series a few innings later. In the 12th, Hank Gowdy, who was catching for the Giants, tripped over his own mask trying to catch a foul pop-up by Muddy Rule, and then Rule went and doubled to left field. After that, Earl McNeely hit another grounder to Lindstrom at third, which also hit a pebble and bounced over his head, just like in the 8th inning, and Muddy Rule scored and won the series for us. Fluky win, Clark Griffith said. That mask up and bit Gowdy. He was going to catch that pop foul and grabbed him away from it. Griff always said God was on our side in that one. Else how did those pebbles get in front of Lindstrom? Not once, but twice. Well, if so, the good Lord took it back the next year. We were ahead of Pittsburgh 3-1 in the 1925 series. We never did win the 4th game. We were ahead in the 7th game, too, 4-0, as late as the 3rd inning. Oh, that was ridiculous. That 7th game was 1925 World Series. It was played in the terrific rainstorm. I'm not kidding. It was pouring like mad from the 3rd inning on. And by the 7th inning, the fog was so thick I could just about make out what was going on in the infield from out there in the outfield. In the bottom of the 8th, we were still ahead 7-6 when Kiki Kuehler got at hit a ball down the right field line that they called fair, and that won the game for the Pittsburgh Pirates. It wasn't fair at all. It was foul by 2 feet. I know it was foul because the ball hit the mud and stuck there. The umpires couldn't see it. It was too dark and foggy. Well, what the heck? I guess it all evens out in the long run. Too late to do anything about it now. Anyway, I never saw an umpire change a decision he made 40 seconds ago, much less 40 years ago. Might as well leave it at stand, huh? Maybe it was we raised these matters. They'll take away some of my hits, too. I got 19 hits in those 2 series, 6 of them home runs, and drove in 13 runs. In 1924, I got 6 hits in a row. Still a record, I reckon. That was in 1924 World Series. Roger Peckinpah, I think that's how you say his name, made 8 errors in that series. In the 1925 one, 8 errors. He was jinxed. Before the series started, he was named MVP in the American League. He was a great shortstop, made miraculous plays for us all season, hit about 300, and then they put the old hex on him, giving him that award before the series instead of after it. We won again in 1933, but it was bad times that year. The banks were shut down that year, bad depression after the season was over. Clark Griffith told me he couldn't afford to keep me. We won the pennant all right, but we didn't make any money. So he sold me to the Detroit Tigers, and I walked right into 2 more pennants there in 1934 and 1935. 35 series was where I got that single in the 9th inning of the last game to win for Detroit. First game the Tigers had ever won. First time the Tigers won in a World Series. Lucky hit, that's all it was. I mean, at least you're lucky to get up to bat at just the right time. I hadn't had a hit all day in that game, and when it came up to bat there in the 9th, the score was tied 2 out, and Mickey Oakrane in on second. I said to the umpire, if they pitch that ball over the plate, you can go take that monkey suit off. Sure enough, first ball Larry French threw in there. Zoom. Oh, did those Tiger fans ever get wild. I'll never forget it. I played with the Senators for 12 years, and then with the St. Louis Browns for 2, and the Detroit Tigers for 4. And the best baseball town I ever played in for was Detroit. The fans there were great. I always had a rooting section behind me in those left field stands in Detroit, mostly school kids. They'd have whole sections of the upper stands roped up for them. When I came up, they all yelled, "Yay, Goose!" I loved it. We weren't allowed to throw balls into the stands back then, But I'd take four balls out with me in my back pockets when I went out for fielding practice. And just before I went back in, after I'd taken my throws, I'd sail them up to the kids. Yeah, I always got a big kick out of the fans. Gee, I used to love to play in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, too. Real close to home, And would they ever raise me? Hey, farm boy, get back to that Jersey farm where you belong. Oh, I used to love that too. I ate it up. They used to raise me a lot in St. Louis too. One day there in St. Louis, I think it was 1930, I had 2 consecutive home runs. And when I came up the next time, they really gave it to me. Darn if I didn't hit a third one right over the right field fence. I laughed all the way around the bases, and by golly, they stopped booing and gave me a big hand as I went around. Best of all, though, I loved to play against the Yankees, especially in Yankee Stadium in New York. Boy, did I get a big kick out of beating those guys, too. They were so great, you know. It was a thrill to beat them. Babe Ruth was my hero, my idol. He was a picture up there or at the plate, a ball player, and such a sweet guy, too. I tried to copy everything he did, but I still loved to beat him. My last year in baseball was 1938. The Tigers released me in May, and Clark Griffith heard about it and called me up. He was a wonderful man who always helpful and kind. He wasn't like a boss, more like a father. He was more than a father to me, that man. He called me up after Detroit released me. You started with me 18 years ago, he said. Why don't you come back to Washington and finish up with me? So I did. Went back to the Senators for the rest of the year. Didn't play too much, though. Couldn't gallop around in that pasture like I used to in 20 years before. Fact is, I didn't even complete my last time at bat. Lefty Grove was pitching against us. He wasn't any spring chicken anymore either. And I swung at a low outside pitch and wrenched my back. Bucky Harris was managing Washington again. Bucky had been my manager from 1924 to 1928. Best manager I ever played for. I played for quite a few, so Bucky had to send in a pinch hitter to finish out my turn at bat. Come on, Goose, he said, and rest up a bit. That was the last time I ever picked up a bat in the big leagues. It was also the first and only time a pinch hitter was ever put in for the old Goose.